Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar presented by Quimbee Bar Review. During today's presentation, we'll be covering what you need to know to pass the Multi-State Bar Exam, or MBE. We're going to get started here in just a minute to allow time for everybody to join us. But today's webinar is going to begin with a presentation from Lori Eller, a Bar Review Director here at Quimbee. And at the end, we'll dedicate some time answering your questions live. So please be sure to submit your questions as you have them in the Q&A feature below. And either one of our Quimbee team members, Shannon, Deanna, or Brenly, who are working in the background here, will answer you directly, or we'll address it during the live Q&A. And don't worry, if we don't get to your question, we'll provide you with our contact information for you to reach out to us after the webinar anytime that works for you. All right, with that, I'm going to flip things over to Lori, who will get our presentation going today. Take it away, Lori.
Perfect. Thank you, Emily. And thank you everyone again for joining us. I think this is going to be a really useful webinar today for you all. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So first, just a quick look at our agenda for the webinar today. We're going to have a quick intro and tell you a little bit about Quimbee. Then we're going to talk about the bar exam. What is it? We're going to cover the UBE, California, and Florida exams briefly. And then we will chat about how to conquer the MBE section of the bar exam. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to master your approach. We're going to go through a sample MBE-style question together. Then we're going to chat about some tips and strategies for learning the law, MBE practice, and then exam day. And then, as Emily mentioned, we'll have a bit of time at the end for a live Q&A. So first, what is Quimbee? We are an all-in-one platform for lifelong legal learning. So we help support you from your very first day of law school all the way up through your legal careers until your final day of practice. We have 4 different products. So you'll start out or may start out here with our study aids to help you prepare for class and your exams in school. Next, we'll help you take the MPRE with our free MPRE review. Then prepare you for the bar exam with our bar review course. And then finally, after you are a licensed attorney, we do have a continuing legal education subscription, so you can get the credits you need to keep your license active. We do also have a poll here. Which bar exam are you all planning on taking, whether that's UBE, Florida, California, or some other jurisdiction? And if you don't know yet whether your state has adopted the UBE, don't worry, we're going to leave the poll up for a little bit as I chat about what the UBE is on this next slide. So, before we can talk about trusted tips and strategies, we do need to break down what that exam looks like so you know how to apply those strategies to your exam. So first, I'll talk here about the UBE, or the Uniform Bar Exam. This map here shows all the states that have adopted the UBE in orange. So if you know you want to practice in one of those states, then your state is using the UBE. The UBE is comprised of 3 different parts: the MBE, the Multi-State Bar Exam, the Multi-State Essay Exam, or the MEE, and then the Multi-State Performance Test, or the MPT. You can see the weightings here, with the MBE being 50% of your total score, the essays being 30%, and then the performance test with the remaining 20% of your score for that uniform bar exam. So let's chat a little bit more in depth about that exam. The MBE section is composed of 200 multiple choice questions covering 7 subjects. And for those 7, think back to your first year of law school: torts, contracts, I'm sure everyone's favorite, Civ Pro. And then you have the MEE. This contains 6 essays that you need to complete in 30 minutes each. And it can test any of those MBE subjects, as well as 5 additional subjects like family law, trust and estates, conflict of laws. And then the MPT is a bit different. It's a closed universe writing task. And what that means is you're going to have a case file that's going to have like statutes, case law, facts, So you don't need to learn any specific law for that portion. Everything you need is going to be in that case file, and you'll use that to draft some type of basic litigation document like a client letter or memo to a partner, something of that nature. So before we hop over and chat now about a state-specific exam, I want to take a look at our poll here. Looks like about 68% of you or so are taking the UBE, so that's fantastic. Then we do have some Florida and California students here as well for those states. So these next couple slides will be super relevant for you all. So going over for this California bar exam, as you can see for this exam, the MBE is included, and it accounts for 50% of your score. And then in addition, you'll complete essays, which can test on California specific law, as well as a performance test. The California essays are 36%, and then the performance test is 14%. Now, a little more in depth there. Again, California exam does include that MBE, but then those other components are a little different. The essay section is 5 essays that you need to complete in 60 minutes each. And they cover the MBE topics and then some additional subjects as well, like community property, professional responsibility, things that are California specific. And then there's also a performance test, but unlike the MPT, there's just one of those writing assignments. Now hopping over here for Florida. As you can see, again, MBE still counts for 50% of your score. And then the 3 Florida essays are 25%. And then you actually have some Florida multiple choice questions that are 25% as well. So again, MBE is still part of your exam, but you're also going to face an additional multiple choice component, so that other 25%. Those 100 multiple choice questions test various aspects of Florida law. And the essay component contains 3 essays. You'll be allotted 60 minutes each for each question. And these essays, cover not only the MBE subjects, but also other topics like family law and professional responsibility. And as you can see, the Florida exam does not contain a performance test, actually. So the writing component is just in those essays. Okay. Now let's take a closer look here at what you'll face on the MBE exam. And I think we have another poll here as well to kind of see when you all are planning on taking the bar exam. Like, what date are you planning on taking that exam? So feel free to hop in, vote on that poll as well, so we can get a sense of, when you all are taking the exam and how soon that is for you. And as we have that poll up, we're going to here take a closer look at that MBE section. So the MBE takes 1 full day of your bar exam, and it's administered in 2 3-hour testing sessions. So you have a morning session of 100 questions, then you have an afternoon session of 100 questions, and you have a lunch break in between there. It is a hard copy exam, so you'll receive a test booklet, and then you're going to mark your answers on a Scantron. And then, as we mentioned a little earlier, it does cover 7 key areas of law: civil procedure, constitutional law, contracts, criminal law and procedure, evidence, real property, and then torts. And the questions are drawn equally from these subjects. Many may see the MBE as a difficult exam. It's an immense amount of material covered, and the depth of coverage is pretty large. They don't test the broad strokes of the law, they do test nuances, so you have to know the law deeply. Plus, of course, there is a time element. It is a time-pressured exam, and staying on pace means completing 1 question in under 2 minutes. But there's no need to be afraid of the MBE. With the right strategies, you absolutely can conquer that section of your exam. Let me take a look at this poll here and see when you all are taking this exam. See, I see here that we have a lot of February 2024 students. Good luck studying with all of you. That's coming up pretty soon. Then we also have a lot of students for July, and then a couple for 2025 as well, and a few 2026 or later. So you all are really looking in advance for this information, which is fantastic. Doing great work there. So now kind of how can you put yourself on a path towards success for that MBE? There are 3 components, which we'll cover in more detail here. So first one is mastering your approach to MBE problems. The MBE problems are like puzzles. You need to use a systematic approach to solve them. That helps you avoid tempting wrong answer options. And we'll walk you through that system on the next slide, I believe. Second here is learning the law. MBE questions cover a broad swath of topics, and as we mentioned a little earlier, they may test some tricky nuances, so that component is, of course, really key. And then quality MBE practice. Practice is crucial for success, but your focus shouldn't be merely on the quantity of problems that you do. That is a common mistake that bar takers make. Instead, you need to bank quality MBE practice. And we're going to share what effective practice looks like in the beginning of bar prep, as well as on the lead up to the exam in some subsequent slides here. MBE problems all contain 3 basic pieces: a fact pattern, a question prompt, and 4 answer options. So let's talk through the strategy to solve an MBE problem. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but reading the question from top to bottom isn't the best plan of attack. Instead, you want to read the question prompt first. You'll immediately get clues on what is being tested from that question, and then you can mentally pull up applicable rules before diving into the facts and the answer options. So this thought process helps you zero in on the right answer. Next, you're going to want to read the fact pattern. And every fact does matter. When you're reading through a fact pattern, remember that each fact listed will be important in some way. If it gives you a fact that you don't think is relevant, try looking at that prompt again and giving it a second look. And use active reading strategies. Underline or make margin notes to help you process the facts. And never assume facts not stated. MBE questions will tell you everything you need to know. They never ask you to deduce some unstated fact that they didn't have in that question. Then stop and analyze. MBE questions require application of law to that fact pattern. So take a moment to analyze how the rule applies before you dive into those answer options. And then finally, review the answer options. So eliminate incorrect answer options. Often the right answer may not feel like the perfect answer. Instead, you often need to just identify the best answer. And one of the best ways to do that is to eliminate obviously wrong answer options. So give whichever answer options remain a bit of thought, so that way you can determine, which is the better one. And like I said, it will be in a hard copy, so you can just cross off the ones that you know are not correct immediately and just kind of get those out of the way. So overall, remember that careful reading and careful thought are required to score points on the MBE. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we are actually going to do a sample MBE style question. So here's the question. I'm going to give you all a little bit of time here to read through that question, and we're going to have a poll up so you all can answer that question as to what you think the right answer is here. So I will give a little bit of time for you all to go ahead and read this, and then we're going to review it and the answer options all together. Perfect. Okay. So it looks actually like the majority of you did get this question correct. So here, B is the correct answer. So answer option B here says, if law enforcement officers validly arrest a person for any type of offense, including a petty misdemeanor traffic offense, the officers generally may search personal property, including opening any closed containers in the possession of the arrested person. and any incriminating evidence or contraband seen in plain view during such a search may be seized and is admissible at trial. So here, because the officers validly arrested the man for speeding, the officers were permitted to conduct a search of the personal property on the man, including opening the closed cigarette pack in his pocket. And because the officers immediately recognized the crack cocaine in the cigarette pack, which was seen in plain view during the search, they were permitted to seize it under the Fourth Amendment. So option A was incorrect here because the officers did not have a basis to search and seize the crack cocaine under the automobile exception. Instead, they had a constitutional basis to do so under the search incident to arrest exception. Option C was incorrect because the search incident to arrest exception does permit officers to open closed containers in the possession of the arrested person. And then D was incorrect because the search incident to arrest exception does apply if a person is validly arrested for a petty misdemeanor traffic offense. So notice how the MBE-style questions do require a firm foundation in the law. So to answer this question correctly, you needed to know the basics of Fourth Amendment law, but also some nuances such as the contours of that search incident to arrest exception. So you do have to know a little bit more of the nuances there of the law. Next, we're going to talk about how you can develop that knowledge of the law. And if you did get that question wrong, don't beat yourself up. Think of it as a great opportunity to gain insight into MBE traps. Knowing these traps is an important part of mastering your approach to these questions. So first, there could be traps in the facts themselves. The examiners include facts to distract you from the correct analysis. Here, notice the facts minimized the severity of the crime and make it seem like it was improper to arrest the man. So here, the facts said it was a petty misdemeanor, and then they noted that officers had discretion not to arrest the man. So these facts are pointing you towards an incorrect conclusion. Second, there may be traps in the answer options. The examiners often craft wrong answer choices by using inapplicable rules. Here, one of the answer options reference the automobile exception, which doesn't justify the search here. They also like to put buzzwords from the right rule in a wrong answer. So here, wrong answer options using tempting buzzwords like closed container and search incident to arrest sounded tempting because of those buzzwords, but they were leading you to an incorrect answer choice. So reading carefully and then knowing the law are really crucial to avoid these traps. So now let's dig into how to learn the law for the MBE next. So as you begin preparing for the MBE, your main focus, of course, is on learning the law. You'll use your bar courses, instructional videos, outlines, and practice questions to master the law. And it's easy to get overwhelmed with the amount of law that you need to master, but here's a simple plan you can follow to learn effectively. So first, you're going to want to preview the subject. Refresh your memory on the subject with a focus on major rules and then the big picture of how the subject is organized. So starting with that big picture allows you to consolidate and remember new information. As an example, our Quimbee Bar Review course has refresher videos on each subject at the very beginning of your course. That's what your study calendar starts with, is these quick 5 to 7 minute videos to give you that big picture and then prepare you for the deeper review. Which is number 2. That next step is to deepen your knowledge and practice. Get into the details of the subject, learn the exceptions, and work through practice questions. And we'll discuss practice in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. Another example here, Quimbee Bar Review has over 300 bar-specific video lessons that cover tested material in depth, organized by subject unit. We pair those videos with 5 question quizzes. That way practice goes hand in hand with your learning. Finally, you'll return to the subject to review and memorize rules. To help with this, our course has condensed outlines called quick lines, which are perfect for review and just lay out those rules that you need for memorization purposes. 2 other tips about learning the law. The MBE draws questions equally from each of the 7 subjects. So the exam will contain the same number of torts questions as evidence questions. So you should study each subject equally. But within each subject, certain topics will be more frequently tested, and it does pay to master those highly tested topics. So for example, in civil procedure, pay special attention to jurisdiction and venue. Both are highly tested. In con law, focus on individual rights. For contracts, it's formation of contracts. In a crim, it's constitutional protection of accused persons. In the subject of evidence, focus on relevancy. In property, focus on ownership of property. And this topic includes present estates and future interests, co-tenancy, and landlord-tenant law. And then finally, in torts, be sure to master negligence. If you have negligence nailed, you'll be able to pick up some extra points. It comes up often on the MBE. And in Quimbee Bar Review, we do have 2 features that really help you identify what those highly tested rules and topic areas are. Our outlines and those quick lines I mentioned contains tags that show you at a glance what's tested most often and least often. And then we also have a performance stats report that lets you see how you're scoring on each of those topic areas, and then it sorts them by what is most highly tested. So it does help to manage your studying and really focus on those highly tested topics. So now let's talk about MBE practice. Quality practice sessions are crucial for success. So how you practice will change over the course of your bar review. At the beginning, you'll primarily be working through practice sets that cover a single subject, such as property. Starting with single subject practice helps you master the law. You're also going to take questions untimed at first. Your goal is to learn the law and get comfortable with solving MBE problems. You'll work on speed later. As you are still learning the law, it does help to do practice questions one at a time and then check the answer explanation right after each question. So like a QA pattern. Using this pattern helps you focus on self-assessment because you'll autopsy each question right after you do it. Our course is set up to allow this. Within a quiz, you can view the answer explanation immediately after each question. You don't have to wait until after the quiz. And let's talk about what I mean by autopsy each question. This means focusing on self-assessment during practice. So read the answer explanation, then try to figure out why you answered the question wrong. Were you unsure of the law? That's a cue to go back and review that subtopic area that was tested. But many times, knowledge of the law isn't the issue. Consider whether, misreading the facts, selecting an answer option based on gut, falling into one of those traps that we discussed earlier, or test anxiety even maybe led you down the wrong path. So try to figure out where you went wrong and then kind of go from there with how to improve next time. And overall, don't dupe yourself into thinking that you can't improve. If you bomb a practice session, don't get discouraged. Just review your performance with an eye to improvement, look for those patterns in your mistakes, and then develop a plan to shore up those weaknesses. You can always increase your scores and improve on these questions. Now, when the exam is nearing, MBE practice will change as you enter the second half of bar prep. In a nutshell, your practice sessions will start to look more like the real MBE. You'll start to focus more on mixed subject MBE practice. The real MBE tests those 7 areas of law, and it does not label the questions with torts, contracts, whatever. So it's important to practice question sets that mix those areas of law, just like the real MBE. As you progress through your bar prep, you'll also start to work on your timing. Time management is hugely important on the MBE. 3 hours may seem like a lot of time, but it actually isn't when you have 100 questions to get through. You have about 1.8 minutes to answer each question. So in the second half of bar prep, you should move towards taking question sets timed. You'll work on pacing when you take longer question sets. Our Quimbee Bar Review course is designed to help you build that stamina. So you start with 5 question quizzes after the videos, but then you also have opportunities to complete 20 question review sets, 4 100-question diagnostic exams, and then a full-length simulated MBE, which is 200 questions. As you work through the questions, especially longer length diagnostic exams, keep track of your performance across the different subjects and then return to areas of weakness. Then you can bolster your knowledge on the topic by returning to your materials. So, like for example, you could rewatch videos on the topic or check out the outline section for that topic area, and then complete additional practice questions to really cement that understanding. So the final step is the exam itself. How can you maximize your score on exam day? Well, that really starts with the days leading up to the exam. So this one might seem obvious, but don't cram and stay up late. Really prioritize your sleep. The MBE requires hours of intense focus, so sleep really does help maximize your score. During the exam, read actively. Get engaged with the fact patterns by imagining them as like a movie playing out in your head, and mark up those questions with your pencil. That will really help you go back to areas and really focus in on the questions. Next, monitor your comprehension. The MBE is a long test and it is difficult to stay engaged, especially during that afternoon session. If you notice your focus is waning, try taking deep breaths, stretching your arms, or looking away from your exam booklet up to the ceiling, and then back to reset your visual focus. And then finally, fill in every single bubble. The MBE does not penalize guessing, so mark an answer for each question and make sure you don't run out of time to do that at the end. Now we're going to zoom back out to the big picture here. So first, mistakes are part of learning. Preparing for the MBE is a journey. There will be ups and downs, but maintain a growth mindset. If you make a mistake, that's okay. Treat a mistake as success in progress. Go for prepared, not perfect. There is a mountain of material to learn for this exam, so prioritize getting through each subject tested, but go for a good, not perfect understanding of the material. Give each subject equal attention and don't skip any subject. You won't know all of it. For the people in the back, you will not know all of it. That's okay. If you're struggling with a rule or a topic, use your outlines or resources to figure it out. But look at the big picture. If the topic is negligence, that's heavily tested. Spend time figuring that out. But one rule of law or topic that isn't heavily tested isn't going to have a big impact on test day. Spend time researching, but don't spend hours and hours on one rule. Small steps. Bar prep is a marathon, not a sprint. When the going gets tough, figure out how you can continue forward progress and break big goals into smaller steps. For example, the goal of memorizing evidence might seem overwhelming. Try memorizing a smaller slice of that subject, such as hearsay, to make the goal seem more doable. The MBE is challenging, but trust that you can conquer it. That mindset is really important as you're leading up towards the exam and studying. At Quimbee, we do have a bar review course to prepare you for your bar exam. We support all UBE jurisdictions, plus California and Florida. And just quickly here, some features of our Bar Review Plus course include proven learning science to develop our materials. Learning theory is at the core of our mission here at Quimbee, which is why we design all of our materials to incorporate findings from over 100 years of educational psychology research. One way that we incorporate that learning science is through our illustrated video lessons in our signature Quimbee style. So these 5 to 7 minute bar-specific videos provide strategy tips and example-driven lessons to help you pass on the first try. We also take a practice-based approach to bar prep with plenty of questions from past bar exams incorporated through full-length diagnostics and a simulated MBE to allow you to practice your exam performance, and then of course through practice essays and performance tests where applicable that you'll get feedback on from our licensed attorney graders to improve your writing performance over time. If you do want to check out Quimbee Bar Review, you can schedule a demo of the course by scanning this QR code, and then you can select a time for either myself or one of my colleagues to log onto the course that you would be taking and then walk you through the program. That way you can see it for yourself and ask any questions that you have about what we offer and whether it would be a good fit for you individually. If you are ready to enroll, you can enroll just right on our main website at quimbee.com/bar review. And finally, if you have questions but don't want to hop on Zoom for a call, that's totally fine. You can also email us anytime at barprep@quimbee.com. So myself and my colleagues, the fellow bar review directors here at Quimbee, we always man that email and are happy to answer your questions. We've also been so proud to help so many students through the bar exam. This is just a small snapshot of some of the feedback that students have given who have used our course to pass their bar exam. And we do have a lot more reviews on our website as well if you want to check that out. So definitely good to check out to see some feedback from actual students who have used our course. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Emily for the Q&A portion.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. So as we said at the beginning, we're going to answer your questions here now. If you have one, please put it in the Q&A feature. And again, one of our team members might respond directly. We also got a lot of questions when you registered, so I'm going to start with those. The first one was, how much time is typically required to study?
That's a very good question. So typically, students do a 10-week full-time course that they take after graduation. So like mid-May through the end of July, whenever the exam date is. This year it's the 30th and 31st. And that typical full-time schedule is about like 8 to 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. And then here at Quimbee, we also do have a part-time schedule, which is a 6-month course with an average of 2 to 4 hours of studying a day, 6 days a week, to try to make it a little bit more manageable if someone's working full-time, has other stuff going on, because that full-time course is a little all-encompassing with the 8 to 10 hours a day.
Great. Thanks, Lori. Next question we have is from a retaker, and they're wondering if there's any specific approach they should have to the MBE.
That is a good question. Yeah, as a retaker, you might have access to a detailed score report from your state where you can actually see on your exam like which subjects you were weaker in. But if not, your bar prep course should have a feature that allows you to see that type of information. So I would take a look at that, really go through, see what those weaker areas are, and then spend some time honing in on those weaker subject areas. And then again, those topic areas beyond just the subjects as well. So for example, if you're not doing as well in con law, it could just be that like 1 or 2 areas of con law are your weaknesses, like individual rights or separation of powers, but you're doing really well in all other areas. So make sure you're checking in with that regularly to spend that review time as effectively as possible. So our course does have like a performance report feature that would show you that information. And then, of course, it's also good to spend more time at mastering subjects that show up more frequently. And of course, the more practice and detailed review of answer choice explanations you can dedicate time to, that's also super helpful because the more questions you review and complete, the more patterns you'll start to see with the questions and then the answer choices as well.
Great, thank you. All right, next question comes from, I guess, someone who's probably doing their research here. They are asking, some bar prep questions seem to be quite harder than on the actual bar exam, and asking specifically how Quimbee's questions compare.
Yeah. So in writing our MBE style multiple choice questions, we really try to mimic the NCBE questions like as closely as possible and keep the difficulty the same. We do identify after you take a quiz when you're reviewing the answer explanations, whether that question was considered easy, moderate, or hard. So we do have that information. And I do get this question from students fairly frequently on demos and calls. And this general concern of the difficulty level of, bar prep company authored questions is a part of why we include all of the licensed past bar exam questions available from the bar examiners in our Bar B Plus course. Because when you're practicing actual bar exam questions, the difficulty level and the format are exactly what you can expect on your exam.
Great, thanks, Lori. Okay, so I'm going to combine a couple of questions because I think we're getting some general, kind of back to the general tips for preparing. So a couple of them were that I saw, what is the most challenging aspect of studying for the bar, and what are the best methods for psychologically preparing?
Very, very important question there. I think, like not psyching yourself out or getting discouraged can be really difficult for the exam. But really adopting that growth mindset that I think I mentioned a little earlier in the slides really can be helpful. That belief that you will see improvement in your skills and your knowledge and your scores if you're putting in that time and effort. So just try not to get too hung up, if you got a question wrong or you just could not figure out issue spotting or organization of an essay. Like, don't spend all day obsessing over it. Just move a path forward, review that answer explanation carefully, make some notes, and move on to the next task. And then also, I would just kind of say, keeping in mind the nature of the exam again, like it is pass fail, it's graded on a curve. So it doesn't help to get hung up on any one small question, topic, issue. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be good enough in all of the subjects.
Great, thanks, Lori. And then I wanted to just address, we actually did receive quite a few questions from registrants about the MPRE, and I know I saw some in the live Q&A as well. I don't think we'll dive into those live here now, but I wanted to reference that we actually did a webinar all about the MPRE. If you go to YouTube and type in Quimbee MPRE, it should be one of the top videos that comes up. It's called Mastering the MPRE. That is a great watch for those questions, but of course, you're always welcome to email that bar prep email or contact us for MPRE questions as well. All right, so back to questions for today. You mentioned wanting to make sure you answer all of the questions. Someone asked, what's the best way to manage your time to make sure you do so?
Yes. So for the MBE specifically, I think it's just really important to not get caught up in the trap of like spending too much time on any one question trying to figure that out. So you're not penalized for wrong answers on the MBE. So if you really just can't narrow it down to a couple answer choices for a question, don't dedicate too much time to that question. Just put your best guess and then move on, because then you don't want to run out of time for the later questions that you would have known the answer to if you had enough time to think through it. So I just think trying to stick to that 1.8 or so, like little under 2 minutes time frame as much as you possibly can, even if that means having to skip one question and move on if you're not sure about it, is really important, because you don't want to then, not have enough time later to questions you would know right off the bat if you had enough time to read them. It's definitely difficult for sure.
Absolutely. All right, let's see here. Next question, kind of going back to general tips, what are some other things that someone can do besides following maybe the direction from their commercial bar prep provider? What can they do to review, to plan to pass?
Hmm. So we chatted about a couple things here on the call today that I think are helpful, but just kind of, besides reviewing the tasks and stuff you have from your commercial bar provider, I would say just really focusing in on those highly tested topic areas. And then of course doing practice questions. But again, with those practice questions, don't just like do the quiz to get the score and then move on and just see like how you're performing like percentage wise. Like make sure you're really taking the time to go back over those answer explanations or the model answer for the question, and make sure you're actually like learning from that review process when you're doing additional practice questions. You need to know why you missed the questions you did. And if you're not, if you're only doing that to see what percentage you're getting correctly, that's not as beneficial a review. So I would say focus on highly tested topics and do lots of those practice questions, but with a goal of review.
Great, thank you. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. And I saw one from someone who is taking the bar here in February, so next month. And the answer might vary depending on when someone is taking the bar exam. But they ask, are recent SCOTUS decisions that have changed a lot of what I learned in law school going to affect what comes up on their bar exam?
That is a very common question as well. Yeah, so with this question, the biggest like recent SCOTUS changes or con law changes are the abandonment of the lemon test and Dobbs. But so it takes up to 3 years for the NCBE to incorporate new law into their questions. So it's fairly unlikely that those areas would appear on the exam. I would just focus on following the materials in your course and learn those new rules that are showing up in your bar prep course, but don't focus on them unduly. New decisions are just one possible area of testing among many others. So try to take a balanced approach with it. And also, the NCBE did release a statement last year about the timeline by which those new SCOTUS decisions might be reflected on the bar exam. So you can check that out as well for some more detail there. It's on their NCBE website.
Great. Thank you, Lori. All right, with that, we're going to wrap up the webinar here. Thanks again to all of you for joining us today. If you have any further questions that we did not get to, we will put our contact information back up on the screen. Again, it's that barprep@quimbee.com email. That's the best way to reach us. And our team is always ready to answer any questions that you have. We respond to emails within 2 business days. You can also click around quimbee.com all day, every day. And you can also book that demo personalized with one of our bar review directors if you want to ask any questions one-on-one. I know I saw several questions about this. Yes, we will be posting the recording of this webinar. It will be on the resources section of quimbee.com and up on YouTube in the next couple of days. It'll also be emailed to you by the end of this week if you would like to watch it back or share it with a fellow student. With that, we hope you have a great rest of your day and best of luck preparing for the bar exam.
Thanks, everyone.